What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to a brand new video. In today's video, I am going to be ranking every film in the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. Now, up until a few months ago, not even a month ago, I have never seen any of the Nightmare on Elm Streets, aside from Freddy vs. Jason and the remake. And I had seen Freddy vs. Jason a crap load. The remake I had only seen once. I am not a big Nightmare on Elm Street fan. I never was. It was never something I grew up watching. I always grew up watching, Halloween, obviously, Friday the 13th, Scream, Child's Play, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. All the big ones, aside from A Nightmare on Elm Street. It's the only franchise I never covered. Now that I have sat down, I have watched every film. They're all fresh in my noggin here. I am going to sit down and rank them for you guys. So, yeah, without further ado, let's get right into it. Already coming in last place, we have Freddy's Dead. This is overall just a complete trash film. It has a V-load of issues. I think my biggest issue with this film, though, is the fact that Freddy is no longer scary in any way, shape, or form. He has just been completely turned into a parody of his former self. This nothing but comic relief character. And he's not interesting, he's not scary, he's not intimidating in any way. He's just, again, a really comic relief character. There's so many corny one-liners in here, like it's travel in time, and it's just a lot of stupid shit regarding Freddy. Another really bad part of this movie is the characters suck. They're very basic, they're not likable, their personalities are very, very, very either dry or annoying, because they're just a bunch of teenagers mostly. And the only character I really did like was the doctor, the big black guy. I forget his name. I don't know why I can't remember his name. The guy who worked at the orphanage. He was cool, and I liked that he was, he kind of knew Freddy's routine and what Freddy does, and he knew kind of how to stop Freddy and how to bring him into the real world. I really liked him. He was the best character in the whole movie. But aside from that, man, the only other, scenes I liked the scene where the kid trips out in the abandoned house. That was a cool and funny scene. And then I liked the part where the kid with the hearing aid gets killed, and how Freddy's kind of playing that really sick game with him where he's scratching on the chalkboard or whatever. I thought that was a pretty good sequence and kill as well. But everything else in this movie, the way Freddy dies is ridiculous. This movie is just really crap. Alright, coming up next, we have the remake of Nightmare on Elm Street, arguably the most hated horror remake of all time. I don't hate it to the extent that everybody else does, but I do see the problems. Starting off the main issue, obviously they pretty much turned Freddy into a pedophile. Did not like that at all. I thought that was a weird way to go with the character. Even though there was hints of it in the original franchise, they went too far with it here. They never outright say it, but I think they just go too far with it, implying it. The characters in this movie are really bad. All of them sleepwalk through their roles. Nancy Tompkins, in particular, her actress, she feels like she does not even want to be there. And I'm pretty sure there was something behind the scenes that she actually really didn't want to be there. And yeah, you can tell. Her the character who plays her boyfriend, or the actor who plays her boyfriend, he just sleepwalks through the role. I really liked Jackie Earle Haley as Freddy. I thought he brought his own sinister, very dark version of the character to the screen. I liked the way he looked. I know a lot of people hated it. I liked it. I thought he did a pretty good job as Freddy. Clancy Brown also being in it. He wasn't a very big character, but I enjoyed him. Wasn't a fan of Connie Britton in this film. Just didn't do it for me. The cinematography, though, in this film is fantastic. The scene in the drugstore that where Freddy's walking towards Nancy as she's on the ground, and he slashes at her and cuts her arm or whatever. There was some really good cinematography in that scene. It shows a bright light in the background, and then it kind of switches between the pharmacy and the boiler room. Really liked that. And the way they beat Freddy, dragging him into the real world and beating the crap out of him, I thought that was a more satisfying ending than the original, of him just she just ignores him and he disappears. I kind of liked the remake ending a little bit better. But yeah, overall, this movie was really flat. The atmosphere was just flat. It felt very plain. Not a very good movie. Coming in at number 7, we have A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 4, The Dream Master. Now, this ultimately is just a way worse version of Part 3. It is such a drag of a film to get through. It's very boring. The characters are nowhere near as good. I do like the main character. The main final girl of this movie. I actually did think she was pretty good. But just killing off all the characters that we, grew to love from part 3, killing them off was a terrible decision. I didn't think Freddy was too great in this movie. I didn't feel like he did anything too crazy, even though I think the makeup and the special effects were top-notch in this movie, arguably the best in the franchise. The whole part where that girl becomes, like, the bug thing, it was disgusting. Really cool, effects there. But it's just, this movie is just very boring. I thought it kind of started to get a little ridiculous. The way she beats Freddy, crack in the mirror, and he's showing his own reflection. I thought it was just getting way too silly. This is where the franchise started to really go downhill, in my opinion. Just nothing. Again, it just felt like a shittier version of 3. There was nothing really unique or creative about this film in any way, aside, again, from some of the practical effects. Ultimately, just like I said, worst part of part 3. So, yeah. Coming in at number 6, and this is going to be a hot take, we have Wes Craven's New Nightmare. I think this movie is very overrated. People act like this was the complete second coming of Freddy, and Freddy was back, and this was as great as the original. Not even close, man. This movie, again, another one that was just kind of a bore to get through, man. You really feel the runtime here. And now, it's a cool concept, just setting up the other films as to be make-believe and, kind of putting Nancy or her actress in the real world, and, they're acknowledging that the Nightmare on Elm Streets 1 through 5 was just, a made-up TV, 1 through 6, was just a made-up TV, movie. So I like that. That was cool, kind of just way to throw you off and do something different, which I appreciated. But I feel like this movie lacked Freddy way too much, or the demon thing that you want to call Freddy. I thought he was in it nowhere near as much as he should have been. The whole thing with the earthquakes, I wasn't a big fan of. Getting to see, all the cast and crew from all the nightmares was cool. I didn't find Freddy too scary in this either. I know everybody's like, oh, the Freddy demon is really creepy. I didn't think he was that scary. All I can think of when I think of this movie is just how bored I was watching it. I didn't like the whole the atmosphere of Hollywood either. I didn't find it too interesting or incredibly cool. It just fell flat for me. So, and then the characters in this movie were nothing great. I think the actress who played Nancy is the only kind of one who stuck out here. And aside from that, everybody, again, all the other characters just kind of fell flat. You had some small cameos from, Wes Craven, which was cool, but he's a director. He's not an actor. And, Robert Englund was there too, but it just didn't do it for me. That's really all I can say. Coming in at number 5, we have A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 5, The Dream Child. Now, I know this one is considered to be pretty bad amongst the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise and fans. I know Part 4 and Wes Craven's New Nightmare are definitely considered to be better, and I'd probably argue that they are better films, but man, I just have so much more fun with Part 5 than I did those two movies. I liked the characters a lot in this movie. I definitely liked them a lot more than I did in Part 4. I found them to be much more rootable, relatable, so much less annoying, specifically the final girl and her male best friend. I'm sorry, I cannot remember any of their names. I suck with names. But those two I thought to be pretty good characters. And the way that they bring Freddy back in this film was also really, really interesting. Though the fact that he comes to life through an unborn child's, dreams was very, very smart. A very good idea. And, the main character, she's all confused as to what the hell's going on and how he's back, because it's the same girl who stopped him at the end of Part 4. And then she finds out because she's pregnant, that's how he's coming back. And I thought that was a really, really smart idea in the way they did that. Wasn't a big fan of the whole kid mentoring thing in this movie, her son being in the dream world, and, how Freddy, again, I'm not a fan of how Freddy gets stopped, his mother showing up or whatever. I thought that was a little weird. But I still, again, had so much fun with this movie in comparison to the others, I thought the Freddy, the little Freddy baby thing that crawled around was pretty funny. and again, like, the characters is just really what set it for me over the other ones. I just thought the characters in this one were better, and again, much more relatable. So yeah, that's at number 5. Coming in at number 4, we have A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3, The Dream Warriors. Now, again, I know this is probably another hot take having it at 4th. I do really enjoy this film. Again, characters really, really likable this go around. I thought that these were some of the best characters in the franchise. Loved having Nancy Thompson back from the first film. It was great to see her again. The setting of being at the psych ward with all these other kids who have been having the same problems with Freddy, and the way they all kind of work together to overcome Freddy and finally beat him. Not all of them survive, but it's still, that was a really novel idea at the time, and I thought it was cool. I enjoyed it. And they were so vulnerable and relatable. Thought the way some of them fought Freddy was a little ridiculous. Some of them being able to do backflips, and the one kid turned into a wizard. I thought that was a little bit strange. It just felt weird to me, less scary and more weird. So that's kind of why I have it a little lower. Weird shit like that started to happen a lot. Having the return of Nancy's father was cool, though, getting to see him again, because I thought he was a highlight of the first film. The way they beat Freddy in this, I thought was smart, too. The way they got to dig up, I think it was his mother's grave. And, they had the whole cross thing and everything to beat him. And then having Nancy die at the end, I thought that was a pretty good, shocking ending. I was like, wow, wait, she's dead? I had to look it up and everything. I couldn't believe it. So, yeah, this was really solid. The soundtrack obviously is fantastic, very 80s. I think Freddy was really good in this one too. I think, this Freddy, he was the perfect mix of that serious, scary Freddy, but also the joking kind of Freddy. Still very intimidating though. So yeah, overall, man, this was a really, really, really good film. This is when the films really started to get good, in my opinion. Coming in at number 3, I have the original Nightmare on Elm Street. So in terms of this, I'm going to say this now because it's the first one. In terms of this movie and this franchise, I do think the Nightmare on Elm Streets are very overrated. I wouldn't even put them in a top 5 horror movie franchises. I know they're very beloved. I don't find them that scary in comparison to a lot of the other ones out there. That's not to say they're bad or that I don't like them. Again, there's a few of them I really do love, including this one. I do think this movie's overrated. But having said that, there are some great sequences and great parts in this film. Obviously, Freddy is a unique villain. He's very different from the others, from Jason and Michael, which I completely respect. I think Robert Englund does a fantastic job. I loved getting to see Johnny Depp. I'm pretty sure this is one of his first performances. It was cool having him in it. Again, Nancy Tompkins, one of the best final girls. I do think she was a bit in this movie with her acting. I think the girl who played Nancy she wasn't bad by any means, but a little, didn't come off natural. She definitely could tell she was acting. But still, that two are two of the best characters in the entire franchise, in my opinion. Some really cool kills in here, obviously. The girl being dragged around the ceiling at the beginning of the first film. She gets killed. Obviously, the Freddy's claws in his face coming through the wall over top of Nancy while she's sleeping was really cool. I also kind of like the idea. They do this in Chucky a lot, where just nobody believes Nancy. And, everybody thinks she's crazy, and that's why she doesn't want to say anything. And she has this whole plan to bring him into the real world and stuff. I like Nancy. She's very competent. She knows what she's doing, and she's strong, and she's a strong final girl. So I really like her. She's seriously one of the best final girls in final girl history. But yeah, like I said, I do really enjoy this movie. I would even go as far to say as I love it. But I just think it is a bit overrated. I don't think it is up there with the GOATs. But, to each their own. So, yeah, that's why I'm putting the original. Coming in at number 2, I know this one is going to be probably very surprising to a lot of you. I have A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, Freddy's Revenge. Now, this is absolutely the black sheep of the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. Nobody ever talks about Part 2. It is never really mentioned. It's the only one that has no characters connected to any of the other films. This one, it feels very standalone. It almost feels like a remake in some ways. But to me, out of all the solo Nightmare on Elm Street movies, this one is by far, in my opinion, the best written, the best directed. I think it's the most relatable. I think it's the least goofy and the most realistic. I really, really dug Freddy's Revenge. I thought this was very good. I loved the idea of having this teenage boy being overtaken by Freddy, and the real sadistic nature of how Freddy's inside this kid's mind, and he's trying to hoax him into killing people, and he's putting him in all these scenarios and just really fucking his life up beyond belief. And again, it's just so relatable because, you know, as a teenager myself, pretty much, it's, you know, it's scary to think about that, like that scenario he gets put in. And I'm not sure the actor's name of the character, but he does such a good job. The teenager, the main kid character in this, he does such a good job at just showing how like upset he is and how disturbed he's becoming because Freddy is just fucking eating away at him. And it was very disturbing. And then, you know, he had the love interest, this girl that comes in, and she, you know, she's the only one who believes him, and she's there for him, and she wants to help him. It's so relatable, and the characters are so vulnerable. And Freddy is arguably at his scariest in this. He's very serious. There's almost no joking. There's no comedy in it. He's just very straight serious. And I thought this is arguably the scariest Freddy we've ever seen. He is just full-blown serious in this. There's so many great moments as well when he pops out at the pool party, and then when he completely just starts breaking through the teenager's, you know, skin, and he's ripping them apart. It's so nasty. So the effects were really good in this, though. And by the end, he just completely becomes Freddy. So yeah, I just really, really thought this movie was very, very good. This was my favorite of the solo Freddy movies for sure. But coming in at number 1, I have to go Freddy vs. Jason. This is just a movie I always grew up watching when I was younger. Is it the best of a lot of these movies? Probably not, no. I don't think Freddy vs. Jason is a very good movie by any means. But fucking, my God, is it fun. It is such a fun film. I will never, ever not have a fun time watching Freddy vs. Jason. You know, seeing Jason and Freddy, 2 horror icons fight, come together, that's groundbreakingly crazy for the time it was made in the early 2000s. That's like stuff we've been starting to see nowadays, but back then that's unheard of, especially in the horror genre. But seeing those 2 icons, those titans collide, is just so awesome to see. And I think it's my favorite adaptation of Freddy. You know, I really like Freddy in that movie. I think he's at his best. I think he looks the best. It's just my favorite version of Freddy. You know, and again, the movie isn't very good. Like I said, there's a lot of weird dialogue, really weird CGI at times. You know, the story is a bit questionable. The characters are not very good. I still like the way that they're able to tie Freddy and Jason together. This idea that, you know, he needs kids to remember him, so he brings Jason back from hell in order to start killing people, so that it'll remind them of Freddy. I still thought that was a really decent, novel idea. And the fight scenes are fucking awesome. Just seeing them kick each other's asses. And in my opinion, I still think Freddy won. Even though obviously he's the one that ends up with his head cut off. I still think he kicked Jason's ass way more than Jason kicked Freddy's ass. But yeah, that is my ranking of the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. I would love to hear your guys' ranking down in the comments below. If you did enjoy this video, make sure to drop a like, rate, comment, subscribe. I'll see you next time. Bye, guys.